Before we begin this week's episode of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, I want to tell you of a great guide that I made just for you. It's the 12 financial mistakes that keep physicians from building wealth. After talking to hundreds of physicians, I've heard many mistakes, and these are the ones that I thought were most important to share so that you can potentially avoid making these mistakes, or if you've already made them, learn a bit about how you might be able to recover. You can grab the guide at my website, www.growyourwealthymindset.com/12 financial mistakes. Now on to this week's episode. Hello, welcome to the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, where it is all about helping amazing physicians just like you create a wealthy life free from burnout and with the financial security to practice medicine on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Elisa Zhang. Hello, and thank you so much for being a listener of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast. In last week's episode of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, I reviewed all different types of insurance and talked about insurance as a tool for asset protection. This week, I'm going to go into detail about an insurance product that I think most people don't necessarily think much about, and that's travel insurance. Over the years, I've personally spent thousands of dollars on travel insurance and never had a payout for a claim on it. Some travel experiences require travel insurance, like when I went on a mission trip to Honduras, when I trekked to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, and for the cruise I took to Antarctica. I've also bought travel insurance for trips where there are large, non-refundable costs, like going on safari in Africa. If you're not required to purchase travel insurance, when is it worth buying? Generally, you should buy insurance to cover a possible financial loss that would significantly impact your financial situation. Buying travel insurance is a way to protect yourself from risk and potential financial losses that may occur when you're traveling. There are many things that can be potentially covered with travel insurance, depending on how comprehensive the plan. Depending on the plan you purchase, you can be reimbursed for expenses incurred due to misconnections or lost luggage. These type of costs are, in the grand scheme of things, rather small and not worth buying travel insurance just to cover those things. Comprehensive travel insurance also covers medical emergencies and emergency evacuation. This is the true value of travel insurance, as an emergency evacuation could cost tens of thousands of dollars. Of course, you have to balance the cost of the travel insurance to the likelihood that such an incident would happen. This will depend on the kind of activities you do when you're traveling. When I did my trip to summit Mount Kilimanjaro, there are people who get altitude sickness and could even get HAPE, high altitude pulmonary edema, or HACE, high altitude cerebral edema, which are true medical emergencies. This is why travel insurance is required for these types of trips. Travel insurance can also cover non-refundable costs if you are unable to travel for a covered reason, like illness or injury. If you have a lot of non-refundable costs that you've paid for your trip, then it may be worthwhile to have insurance to potentially cover those costs. In my opinion, there's not a lot of reason to buy travel insurance when traveling domestically within the United States. One of the benefits of COVID is that a lot of airlines now allow you to change your ticket without a change fee or cancel your ticket for credit on a future ticket, so long as you don't buy the most discounted type of ticket, usually called basic economy. However, if you book to go on a cruise or paid a large amount of money for a non-refundable activity, you could still consider travel insurance in the case that you have to cancel your trip for a covered reason. When traveling internationally, it can be worthwhile to consider purchasing coverage. When you're traveling internationally, your U.S. health insurance won't cover you in the case of a medical emergency. Depending on what activities you're planning on doing on your vacation, you may want to consider travel insurance to potentially cover any medical costs or even evacuation if something bad happens. If you're going to another country that has subpar medical care, you may also want travel insurance to cover the cost of returning to the United States early in order to access good health care. Your United States auto insurance policy may cover your rental car in the US, but it will not cover you if you're in another country. Travel insurance can cover your car rental when you're traveling internationally and could potentially be more affordable than the car insurance that is sold by your car rental company when you consider all the other benefits that come with the travel insurance policy. Before I go into the details of what may be covered by a comprehensive travel insurance, I thought I'd talk about the travel insurance provided by some credit cards. Many Chase cards, including the popular Chase Sapphire Preferred and Chase Sapphire Reserve cards, offer travel insurance as long as you pay for at least part of your trip with that credit card. However, I'm not sure how much I'd really count on this coverage. On our trip to the Balkans, we got a flat tire in Slovenia. The rental car charged us €205 for the tow and new tire. I attempted to get reimbursed through Chase Sapphire Preferred and was assured that the cost was eligible for coverage. However, they kept requesting documentation that I could not get from Hertz, the company we rented the car from, despite multiple international phone calls directly to the office and emails to Hertz national office, phone calls to the national office, and phone calls with insurance people that are contracted through the Sapphire card. The Hertz rental car office did send me some documentation. It wasn't like they wouldn't send me anything, but it wouldn't satisfy what the insurance people wanted. Eventually, I deemed it no longer worth my time to get back the €205, but also took that as a lesson to not depend on the trip insurance offered by credit cards. While I'm thankful to have learned the downside of using credit card offered travel insurance with a relatively low cost in the grand scheme of things, I was so annoyed that I actually canceled my Chase Sapphire Preferred card. I looked online to find other people's experiences and recommendations regarding using travel insurance with their credit card. I did find someone on Reddit who used their Chase Sapphire Reserve card to rent a car and had a chipped windshield that was covered. Interestingly, the poster had also rented from Hertz and wrote in their post that Hertz had, quote, sent a 25-page PDF containing the rental contract, claim details, invoices, reports, and photos, end quote, which he submitted to Chase Sapphire Reserve. He later received a letter that the claim was paid and called Hertz, who confirmed the payment. The poster didn't say where he rented the car, so it could very well have been within the United States. Part of my issue may have been that the car was rented in Croatia and got fixed in Slovenia. So the Hertz rental office in Croatia didn't actually have the specific invoices that the Chase Sapphire insurance people wanted. Of course, different cards have different policies. Chase has other cards that offer some travel protection outside of the Sapphire card. American Express cards also offer some coverage. Read your card's guide to benefits before your next trip to know what coverage you have and whether you want to consider buying more coverage. Many cards provide some amount of trip interruption or delay coverage. If you use the Chase Sapphire Reserve card to book your original flight, Chase may reimburse you for, quote, reasonable expenses incurred during the delay, end quote. This amounts to up to $500 per ticket if you're delayed more than 6 hours or your delay forces you into an overnight stay. Per Chase, reasonable expenses include meal, lodging, toiletries, and medication. However, to get reimbursement, you need to provide documentation stating the delay or cancellation is due to an eligible reason. Chase defines eligible reasons for delays as, quote, equipment failure, inclement weather, strike, or hijacking, skyjacking, end quote. If your flight was canceled due to your crew timing out and the airline can't find a new crew, or you can't get documentation from the airline, you're unlikely to get reimbursed for anything. If you can get the documentation and have a covered reason, then there are people who have gotten reimbursed by their credit card through my search on the internet, so it can be a good benefit. Your credit card may also have trip cancellation coverage in the case that you have to cancel traveling due to a covered reason, such as you or your traveling companion become sick. I remember in residency, I had to write a letter for a patient who couldn't travel due to needing treatment for some retina issue that had come up. And other coverage offered by credit cards is covering your baggage if it's significantly delayed. The first thing you need to do if your baggage doesn't appear when it should, like it's not in the baggage belt after your flight, is go to the carrier, like the airline, where you check the bag, and report the missing baggage. The airline will obviously look for your baggage, and the airline may actually even cover reasonable and verifiable expenses due to delays, like toiletries and clothes. If the airline doesn't provide you any coverage, then you may end up using your credit card coverage. Chase may reimburse you up to $100 per day for up to 5 days. Items must be essential And there are some items that are excluded from reimbursement, like jewelry and select electronics and recreational equipment. If your luggage ends up being lost or damaged, you may also have some coverage, either with the travel provider or your credit card. I once had my suitcase damaged by the airline, and the airline actually produced a new suitcase for me. Surprisingly, it was the same brand and style as my old one, but it was a slightly different size and I think a different color as well. Chase Sapphire cards cover up to $3,000 per covered traveler for the cost to repair or replace checked or carry-on luggage that is lost, damaged, or stolen during a covered trip. I already mentioned how credit cards can come with auto rental coverage. In order for your credit card to cover the car, you have to decline the rental company's collision insurance and charge the entire cost of the rental onto your card. This coverage covers the damage to the vehicle you're renting and does not cover damage to other vehicles or property that is caused by the rented vehicle. Chase Sapphire cards also provide travel accident insurance for accidental death or dismemberment coverage, emergency evacuation and transportation coverage, and emergency medical and dental benefits. These benefits are more specific to the Chase Sapphire cards and is beyond what many other credit cards tend to offer in terms of their travel insurance coverage. One caveat that you want to keep in mind is that your credit card coverage is secondary insurance. If you're delayed overnight and the airline provides you with a hotel and meal vouchers, even if you'd rather stay at a different hotel and get room service, your credit card isn't going to reimburse you for the different hotel that you want to stay at or that room service since the airline has offered you a hotel with meal vouchers. Now let's review what comprehensive travel insurance covers. Coverage will always depend on the policy you purchase, and many travel insurance carriers will offer different plans at different price points. Of course, what these plans cover overlap with coverage provided by credit card travel insurance. Depending on the company, there are two types of travel insurance policies available: single trip plans and annual plans. The cost of a single trip plan will depend on factors like the amount of coverage you're looking for in terms of the cost of the travel you want to cover, the length of the trip, and possibly what countries you're traveling through, though I'm not completely sure about this if it's actually used as a variable. Many travel companies will ask what countries you are traveling to when you request a quote, but I don't know if that really factors into the price. Companies typically have different tiers of coverage, from basic to premium, and sometimes a mid-level product. Basic coverage will cost less, but will also have lower reimbursement amounts and potentially less coverage. Sometimes there are also optional add-ons that you may want to consider. Often the premiums will include the add-ons, but the basic, you will have to pay extra to get those specific add-ons that you want coverage for. Annual plans cover travel over the course of a year, or whatever period you're buying the longer plan for. If you travel a lot, like I do, it can be cost-effective. There are plans that cover individuals, as well as plans that cover anyone in the household living in the same address. Annual plans have a maximum coverage for the year for things like trip cancellation and trip interruption. For example, if there is a maximum trip cancellation coverage of $10,000 for the year, and that could be per person or per household, and you end up canceling a trip for a covered reason and get reimbursed, let's say $6,000, now you only have $4,000 of trip cancellation coverage for the rest of the year. It's not $10,000 per trip. It's over the covered period. There are other categories where the coverage is per trip, like World Nomad's annual plan covers $35,000 for rental car damage per trip, not per year. Annual plans may limit the length of a covered trip. For example, World Nomad's annual plan allows for trips up to 45 days. The nice thing about annual plans is that they cover you anytime you travel more than a certain number of miles, typically 100 miles, from your primary residence. This means that you're covered for domestic travel as well as international travel. Baggage delay protection reimburses you for essential items and clothing when a common carrier, often an airline, fails to deliver your checked bag within a set amount of time of your arrival at your destination. This is something I already previously mentioned that's often covered by credit card travel insurance. Typically, you may be reimbursed for a particular amount per incident per day. The amount can vary from $200 up to $500 per day, depending on the plan. Lost or damaged baggage protection provides reimbursement to replace lost or damaged luggage, as well as items inside that luggage. That coverage can range from $750 to $3,000 from what I've seen. Trip delay reimbursement provides reimbursement for necessary items, food, lodging, and sometimes transportation if you are delayed beyond a certain number of hours when traveling. For example, it may cover transportation to your next cruise port if you're delayed getting to your cruise ship for a covered reason. There may be a limit for each day as well as a maximum limit. A less expensive plan or more basic plan may cover $100 a day up to $500, where a premium plan may cover $200 a day up to $1,000. There may also be a specific amount specified to cover missed connections. Missed connection coverage may provide you with reimbursement if you have any unused, forfeited, or prepaid non-refundable payments or deposits that were paid for land or water travel arrangements that you purchased for your vacation. It can also include coverage for any additional cost of transportation to rejoin your trip. If you missed your trip departure because your arrival to the trip destination was delayed for a specified amount of consecutive hours per the plan or for a covered reason. Some travel insurances also monitor flights, so if you submit your flight itinerary, you don't need documentation from your airline to prove that your flight was delayed. They can see that the flight that you were scheduled to be on was delayed, so that also makes it easier than most credit cards where you actually do have to provide specific documentation. Trip cancellation and interruption protection may provide reimbursement if you need to cancel or interrupt your trip for a covered reason, such as an illness or injury. It may also cover trip cancellation in the case where you lose your job or you're subpoenaed to appear in court. The paperwork for any policy that you purchase will specifically list all the covered reasons, and they will vary by plan. If you buy your travel insurance policy within a certain time window of making the first deposit for your trip, then you may have the option to add in trip cancellation for any reason. This may also cost extra. Usually, this will only cover a portion, like up to 50% or 80% of the non-refundable costs that you paid for your trip if you do end up canceling. But in this case, you can cancel for any reason and get some reimbursement. Trip interruption applies if you've already started traveling, but you had to cut your trip short for a covered reason, like sickness, injury, or death of a family member or travel companion. Coverage could be 100% or even 150% of the insured trip cost. There may be a limit on reimbursement for return transportation, so they won't reimburse you to fly back in business or first class, but you will be able to get a last-minute ticket to get back home. There may also be a trip change benefit that reimburses fees or extra expenses from a carrier or supplier if you cancel or change your airline, rail, cruise, or tour itinerary for a covered reason. Medical evacuation insurance can arrange and pay for medical evacuation if deemed necessary by the insurance provider and a medical professional. This can be especially important if you're traveling in a country that doesn't have great medical facilities or you are doing any potentially dangerous activity like high-altitude mountaineering or ice climbing. A helicopter airlift can certainly be pricey. Emergency evacuation coverage can vary greatly from $150,000 to $1 million in coverage. Some plans don't cover certain activities, so that's also something to be aware of. World Nomads Travel Insurance specifically lists what activities are covered under their different plans. Emergency medical insurance may also provide payment or reimbursement if you seek medical care while you're traveling. Often, only emergency medical care is covered. As physicians, we know there's a whole industry of medical tourism where people will travel to other countries in order to get healthcare because it's less expensive there. The coverage for medical expenses could be as low as $15,000 for basic coverage or as high as $150,000 for premium coverage. There may also be dental coverage, which generally will have a lower maximum than what's available for other medical coverage. There may also be an option for upgrades like hospital of choice evacuation. Travel accident insurance may provide payment to you or your beneficiary in the case of loss of limb or death from an injury occurring during the trip. Some plans also cover loss of sight. Travel Guard offers $30,000 for non-flight accidental death and dismemberment and $100,000 for flight accident coverage. While Nomads covers between $7,500 and $12,500 depending on the plan for accidental death and dismemberment. Rental car coverage can cover collision damage or theft up to a set amount. It may only cover certain classes of vehicles and may not cover luxury car rentals. Limits vary on how much damage is covered and ranges from $35,000 to $75,000 from what I've seen. Travel insurance companies may also offer assistance like concierge services, roadside assistance, travel medical assistance, or even identity theft restoration services. Different travel insurance companies have different perks. I've never used these perks, even when they are available and I do have them, so I don't know how good they really are. I tend to plan my own travel, and I don't know, I just never thought to really call their concierge service. Before you buy any policy, you do want to read the paperwork to understand the full terms of the policy. It can also be worthwhile to call and talk to a representative of the policy if you have any specific concerns or questions. You usually have a period of time after you purchase a policy to get a refund if you review the policy and want to cancel it, assuming you haven't started traveling before you cancel. Usually this period of time could be somewhere in the range of 1 to 2 weeks. And of course, insurance is only as good as it actually pays when you have a covered loss. That's why it's important for any insurance that you purchase to be from a reputable company, a company that has good financial standing. It helps if you know someone who's had to file a claim and you can talk to them about their experience, how easy or not so easy it was to get their reimbursement. If you don't know anyone, the internet is full of people who have shared their experiences, but of course, it's impossible to know how accurate they are when they're telling their story. From my research, reputable travel insurances include AIG Travel Guard, Alliance Travel Insurance, American Express Travel Insurance, IMG, TravelX Insurance, and World Nomads. I currently have an Alliance Travel Insurance annual plan, and I've purchased World Nomads and Travel Guard insurance in the past. Again, I've never actually put a claim on any of these, so I don't actually have firsthand knowledge of how great they are. I have heard from a woman physician who has the annual Alliance travel plan, and she has had to make claims before and hasn't had any problems, which is one reason why I went with it. In 2025, I was counting out how many weeks of the year I'd be traveling, and it's looking like it's going to be about 33 weeks. So for me, I think it's well worth having an annual travel insurance plan. What about you? Have you bought travel insurance? Did you only buy it because it was required? Have you had to make a claim on travel insurance? If you had, I would love if you would share your experience of filing the claim and getting reimbursed with me. You can reach me at growyourwealthymindset@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode and happy travels. Thank you so much for being a listener of the Grow Your Wealthy Mindset podcast, and I'll be back next week with another episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with your friends and colleagues. And now for the disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner, accountant, or attorney, and nothing I say should be construed as professional investment, tax, or legal advice. This show is primarily for your education and entertainment. I am a physician, but I'm probably not your physician. So if you need any medical advice, please contact your own physician. Thank you. Don't forget to pick up your guide, 12 Financial Mistakes That Keep Physicians from Building Wealth. You can grab that guide at my website, www.growyourwealthymindset.com/12 financial mistakes. You'll also find that link in the show notes.